Welcome to About You. I'm Connie Hogan. What better way to celebrate our holiday season than by celebrating and highlighting one of our esteemed institutions around Bloomfield Hills, that is the Academy of the Sacred Heart. My guest today, Paige Comito, is athletic director at Sacred Heart. She's also a graduate of Sacred Heart, but was living in Chicago until 4 years ago when she came back home to Sacred Heart. She has a very interesting story in the roles that she played in Chicago as well as here. She was a school psychologist, which is so interesting in our times. And we're just really interested in having Paige talk about herself as well as Sacred Heart. Paige, welcome.
Thank you, Connie. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's been a crazy week and a crazy day. We were just talking. But tell us a little bit about how it came that you came back to Sacred Heart. I know you graduated several years ago now, and just fill us in on all that time in between.
Sure. So I graduated the Academy of the Sacred Heart in 2005, and then I pursued a lifelong dream of playing collegiate field hockey at Sacred Heart University out in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Oh, I didn't know it was in Connecticut. Oh, we'll have to talk about that.
Yes, and they're not affiliated. Everybody always asks me, are these two schools affiliated? And they're not. But of course, field hockey is a East Coast sport, always has been, so that's what brought me out there.
Right.
Once I completed my psychology degree at Sacred Heart University, I then made the decision to move to Chicago, where I attended the Chicago School of Professional Psychology to pursue my educational specialist degree in school psychology. And so then I was out there for about 9 years working in public high schools in the Chicagoland area. I worked at a few different schools where I was a school psychologist, and then being that I was in the school environment, it allowed me to also coach, which is obviously a passion of mine.
Oh, cool. Perfect.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Sometimes these things do just serendipity, right?
Correct.
Works
Correct.
out.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to be a varsity field hockey coach out there. I was a varsity lacrosse coach for several years. And then I was also pretty involved in some grassroots field hockey programs to grow the sport with our youth population in different club organizations, school organizations. So it's really field hockey and lacrosse and sport has been a part of my life for a long time.
Incredible. Now, you're the tennis coach here too, right, or no?
Varsity field hockey coach.
Okay.
And then I also coach the middle school lacrosse and the lower school lacrosse.
Now, what kind of other teams do they have there at Sacred Heart, though?
So we have 11 varsity sports at Sacred Heart. In the spring, we have tennis, soccer. We just actually added soccer. This is going to be our first year as our own soccer program.
Cool.
Previously, we were co-opt with Everest Collegiate. But there's such a growing interest in soccer at Sacred Heart. So we decided that this year was the right time to make the move and to create our own program.
Wow.
So that's exciting.
Wow, very, yes.
And then we have lacrosse in the spring. Right now we have ice hockey, basketball, dance and poms, and our ski team. And then the fall we have field hockey, swimming, golf, and volleyball. Field hockey, swimming, golf, and cross country. So
what are the sports that I know, I hear some things that you win the most championships in, I guess, if you do.
So
Not to put you on the spot about that.
No.
We're Brother Rice people, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
So we have a long-standing history of success in both lacrosse and tennis.
Tennis was what I was thinking.
Yeah, so tennis continues to be our strongest
Right, that's
sport.
what people think of, yeah.
Right, correct. So we, my first year as athletic director, we won the state championship in tennis.
Cool.
And then the last 3 years, we finished in the top 3 with our number 1, number 2, number 3 doubles players winning the state championship. So tennis is our...
Well, I used to live right near Sacred Heart, so I know they'd have everything out there, and I'm like, well, what was it again? I was trying to think this morning. What was it? Tennis.
Tennis.
Cool.
And then back when I was there, lacrosse was a huge, we were always in the state championship running. So for quite some time, up until about 2015 or so.
So I know that you've worked, or you guys have collaborated with some of the other private schools and Catholic schools around. So tell us a little bit about some of the things you've done, and I assume it probably leads into some of the success you've had. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have cooperative programs with other private schools. Typically, most of the programs are with other Catholic High School League schools.
Right.
So given our size, it just helps our programs. So,
yeah.
you know, I mean, even if we have 2 girls from another school, it's, you know, it makes such a difference. So, you know, for example, last spring, we were part of the Everest Collegiate Soccer Co-op for 7 years, and they made it to the state championship game.
Now that was Clarkston?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes. So we co-op in swimming, we co-op in golf, we co-op in, so field hockey, we decided to make it a co-op because we had a few girls from Bishop Foley that were interested in playing field hockey.
Okay.
So it's a nice opportunity, and especially for these other schools who might not have these sports. So it gives them an opportunity to play some of these sports that they just don't have at their school.
So how does that work then? Is it like if, say, they win, and say you have 2 girls at Sacred Heart or whatever, they're going to play with them, then they actually play on that team when they play the games and stuff?
Correct.
And then when they win, they would say, okay, I'm still a student at Sacred Heart, but this is, so it's kind of simple, really, if you think about it.
Yeah,
I was thinking more complicated.
No, you know, all the schools are recognized that are a part of that co-op. Our ice hockey team is actually comprised of 6 different Catholic High School League schools.
Oh, okay.
And it's to the point where originally we were Sacred Heart United, but we've kind of moved in the direction of calling ourselves the Saints, just because it's representative of all the schools, and, you know, being that we are, you know, this conglomerate of different schools, it's just, that way it's not so Sacred Heart specific and these other
What did you call
teams.
yourself before?
Sacred Heart United.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was
And
Gazelles.
we're still under the umbrella of Sacred Heart United for our
Okay.
hockey program.
Okay. So you call yourself the Saints.
Saints.
I'll have to tell you another story offline. I was at a school that called themselves Saints.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
It was also a Sacred Heart, non-affiliated. What a small world, right?
I know.
So there must be a lot of them, I guess.
So we also have a network of Sacred Heart schools.
Right, and that's the one
And
that
some of them are the
a
Saints.
lot of my friends and peers, you know, they're so, no offense, so gung-ho. Sacred Heart, like if you say, I went to Notre Dame, so it's like university, and it's like, oh, I went to Sacred Heart, it means high school. It's like, you know, which is great, I'm not
Right.
taking anything, but that was like the peak of their life, you know, some of these people. Good for them. I mean, that's wonderful that they had that experience, you know, but it's amazing, I will tell you, as you well know, the amount of rabid and dedicated, loyal alumni, even among people, I'm not going to call names here, even among people who did go on to Notre Dame and Northwestern and wherever, Harvard, you know, that they really still, if you say, where did you go to school? Oh, Sacred Heart in Bloomfield Hills. Isn't that funny?
It is. I mean, and it's actually an excitement from anyone who graduates from Sacred Heart. The minute they find out that they have another, you know, they've met another Sacred Heart grad.
It's like a sisterhood, I should say, brotherhood, sisterhood.
And we all have the same, you know, we all have the same class
That's
rings.
right, yeah.
And so
I'm jealous, and sometimes I'm jealous about that because it's like, you know, you don't find that in this world that much
really
anymore. Or in any
and
time.
it's a strong sisterhood, you know, it's a strong
and
bond.
they're very successful most of the time.
Right.
Most of the time. I think even, you know, some of the other, I won't say which girls' schools around, Catholic schools around, they have it, but it's a different kind of thing. It's more of like it would be more of a public school system.
Right.
But Sacred Heart is just so so unique in that. So tell us a little bit about, you and I were just talking about this. How did COVID impact you guys? I mean, we're not getting back into it, but I know, you know, it's still out there. And how did that all, did that impact you coming back here at all, or no?
It did carry some weight with my decision to move back.
Okay.
To be honest, I never thought I'd move back to Michigan.
Right, you said that. I mean, I saw where you.
Yeah, so you know, when this opportunity had presented itself, now don't get me wrong, the field of school psychology was incredibly fulfilling, but it's a tough job.
I was just going to say that's got to be.
It's heavy.
I can't
you know,
even
it carries
imagine.
a lot of weight.
Can't even imagine.
So unless you can, you know, compartmentalize and, you know, keep everything at work,
I bet
it can be a challenge. And so, you know, working on that side of education versus working on the
sports
athletic side, the
oh,
sports
that's gotta
side.
be so much different, yeah.
I always like to tell people it's almost, this is the difficult, challenging side of education. This is the exciting, celebratory, fun side of education. So,
yes.
Vastly different, but so being in my head about, do I really want to stay in the field of school psychology forever? And then with this opportunity that presented itself, I felt like this was my home, and quite literally my second home at Sacred Heart. So it just felt like the right time. I had a lot of friends moving out of the city. Obviously, the city at that time during COVID was not really where you wanted to be.
Well, it's not now. I mean, it's because like I said, I did go to college around Notre Dame. That was our city, even though it's 90 miles away, but it's felt like it was closer. I have a real affinity for Chicago.
Love Chicago.
That's, that is just such a sad thing. We could talk for the rest of the show on that, but I mean, it's very, very, and what's so amazing is so many of my friends, which is known that, people come from Chicago to Notre Dame. It's probably the biggest group, although they're from all over the world. But so many of the people who love Chicago are moving to wherever. I mean, a lot of them moved to Denver, Salt Lake City. I mean, it's like, it's just so dangerous. It's so terrible. It makes Detroit look, it really does. I think
I know.
so.
And Detroit keeps growing, which
Detroit
is also
is really,
wonderful.
and our area is so underrated. I mean, it really is. Which in some ways I'm glad, because I don't want a big, like 20 million people like Florida, But I think one of these days people are going to figure it out, and it's like, oh my God, everything will start going way up, and which is what we want, but.
Well, and I think personally, having been away from this area for so long, I mean, I hadn't moved home I hadn't been home since I had left for college when I was 17. So
really,
I hadn't lived here in a very, very long time.
No kidding.
And coming back here, though, I love it. I really do love being here. I love being home. I love being close to family. And this area it's a beautiful area to live in.
That's the main thing, I think, that even with Chicago, they don't have this, is the beauty of nature. I mean, they do, but not like we do.
I mean, drive, 30 minutes outside of the city and get it a little bit.
Exactly. And, we have so much, just so much natural beauty.
We do.
That, there's just water everywhere, good or bad.
Right.
And, it's just that weather that but Chicago's worse, I think, a little bit.
It's a little cold once you get close to that lake.
Honestly,
walking around
being in South Bend, Indiana, I think it's worse than Chicago.
It might be.
And coming here, I mean, it was like, you were like, oh, all my friends now, it's like, because I'm retired, they're in Florida, Naples, and it's like, come down here, and I'm like, we get into fights about it. I mean, it's crazy.
My family actually has a place down in Naples, so
do they?
When I'm not here, I'm
it's
trying
nice.
to be down
it's
there.
Very nice
beautiful.
Until the hurricanes come.
Correct.
And I just don't want to deal with that. I mean, that's the other beauty we have here. You can deal with once in a while a tornado. It's not every year, but you could.
Right.
But I mean, hurricanes to me is just the worst, the absolute worst. So tell us a little bit more about like some of the other challenges of a private school now. I know that education is it's such a crazy thing, and we just saw this Oxford thing, finalize, and not that that's the standard of everything, but what do you see as so many challenges and contributing to the challenges in schools?
So I would say that, right now, education at the high school level.
At the high school level,
our students are really pushing themselves to take AP courses and to be involved in everything,
really,
and to really pack that college resume. And so you're starting to see that, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed out, there's that burnout factor.
True. Yeah.
And that I think is one of the biggest challenges right now.
Makes sense.
And especially being in a private school, and this is a pretty competitive area. There's great private schools in this area.
Totally, yeah.
And we're blessed with that. It's a blessing and a curse, because it's in terms of making sure that they're still remaining competitive. But at the same time, they're these schools are trying to keep up with enrollment, and it's just a challenge. But at the end of the day, I think Sacred Heart does a really nice job of educating the whole child, and it's really I might be biased, but I think that's the right school for young women. It's a smaller environment. They're really able to get involved with as many things as they'd like to. That's the beautiful, unique thing about Sacred Heart. And especially, as we bring it back to athletics, we have girls who, if they were to go to another private school, they might not make a varsity team.
Right, I've heard that. Yeah.
Whereas at Sacred Heart, you can, and you can have those experiences, and you can, develop these young athletes.
So Sacred Heart, like, as the Catholic girls' schools around enrollment-wise, is it the smallest, or?
For all girls, yes, we
For
are
all
the
girls.
smallest.
Yeah, and then like where would like Marion rank in that? Probably one of the biggest, probably, or?
Yes, I think out of all of them, Regina might have the highest enrollment of all of the all-girls schools. Regina or Mercy. Mercy's pretty big too.
Yeah.
But Marion is still pretty large. I mean, definitely in comparison to us.
I've just heard with friends of mine whose kids were there, it was just a lot more not competitive, but just bigger, and it was just a lot more stressful, I think. And plus, you have such a beautiful environment at Sacred Heart. Let's never forget that.
We do.
I mean, it's just fabulous. And I know a few years ago there was talk. I just heard like on the periphery of it, that what were they going to do? And I know they did sell some of the land behind it and develop some stuff. So,
yes, we did do that. Which Sacred Heart we're in a great place right now. We're growing, especially at our primary and lower school level. We just actually turned one of our old auxiliary gyms into all new primary classrooms. So because of our growing enrollment there.
Wow.
So it's really exciting. And
yeah, I was going to ask you that. So it's kindergarten through 12th grade, or is it?
It's actually infant through 12th grade.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So we brought on our babies program and then our early childhood program.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the exact years, because when I was there, we only had primary, so pre-K through 12th grade for girls. And then actually while I was in high school, we had opened up the all-boys middle school.
So you still have an all-boys middle school?
Yes.
But
So
the high school is only girls, right?
correct. So we're co-ed up until 4th grade.
Oh, I didn't know all this. Okay.
Then we have an all-girls middle school, an all-boys middle school, and then an all-girls upper school.
Wow. Wow. So, like, do you have, like, in your administration, do you have, like, I assume there's a development director and all of that kind of stuff. So do y'all get, I mean, I don't want to ask, numbers and whatever, but I'm sure you have a huge outreach and philanthropy and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's probably one of the top ones and stuff. So anything else you want to tell us about? I mean, like events? I know that I played in a golf tournament a few years ago over at Oakland Hills for Sacred Heart. Did you play in that? I don't know if it was a couple years ago.
Was it our golf outing?
Yeah.
Then I probably was there.
You were there.
Yeah.
So are they doing a lot of that stuff now? Are they doing more of it, or?
Yes. So that's actually sponsored by our booster club, who I work pretty closely with. We had some gentlemen start up the booster club some years back, and now actually this year we've really grown that booster club and that parent participation. So we have several events that we put on throughout the year that are some really great fundraising events for athletics specifically. And then, we always look forward to our annual all-school benefit that we have every year. So it's, there's some great events that we want our community to be a part of, and obviously our current families and students. So there's some.
So talk a little bit about, and we talked a bit, you replaced Sal Malik.
I did.
Talk about
I did.
him.
So, Mr. Sal Malik.
Yes. Tell us the story of Sal Malik.
Yes. So, Sal is my mentor. Still one of my mentors to this day. But he is a wealth of knowledge. He's been a part of the Catholic League for his entire career.
Right, and the name is kind of,
Oh, yes.
I'd forgotten that was Sacred Heart. I was thinking it was whatever, I don't know.
Well, he was with Ladywood for a long time until they closed their doors. And then he came over to Sacred Heart. And so he was with Sacred Heart until I replaced him.
Okay.
And Sal has actually, since I took over for him, he's that fill-in athletic director at various Catholic High School League school. So he was at U of D for a little while, he was at Marion for a little while, and now he's actually at Our Lady of the Lakes as the full-time athletic director there this year. So he's he's still hanging in there, and but
that's amazing.
He's just a great resource. He's a great guy, and he's such a proponent for women's athletics.
So we talked about Sal Malik, but let's talk a little bit about Vicki Oakley. I know she did pass away.
She did. So Vicki Oakley was
She's British, right?
She was British. She came here from England in the 90s. A Sacred Heart family brought her to Sacred Heart to really amplify our lacrosse program. And she was also a PE teacher at Sacred Heart for many, many years. So I had the pleasure of having her as my varsity lacrosse coach.
That's amazing, yeah.
And while I was there, we had won a state championship my freshman year, we won my senior year, and she had so many state championships in between and before.
Wow.
So she's a very well-known.
So she was there for a long time.
Oh, she was.
Okay.
She was there until she passed, and so she's actually she's a very well-known figure in the women's lacrosse world, not only in the state of Michigan, but in the Midwest.
Right.
So it was a very sad situation to see her go, but we're trying to get our lacrosse program right back up to where it used to be.
So you're kind of been rebuilding.
She's always in the back of my mind. She's that. I can kind of look at her fondly as somebody who I looked up to.
Wow, I'd forgotten, because I remember when all that came about. And I'd forgotten. So let's talk a little bit more, as we were talking about fundraising, and all of our favorite, because that was my background too, but on the giving side, not on the doing it, because I know how difficult it is. It's so important. Talk about, we were talking about the golf outing, right? But do you do that every year? Or?
We do. So we've had it.
But you switch around to where it's held.
So the last 2 years we've had it at our Orchard Lake Country Club.
Oh, okay.
And then,
so it's August, right?
It's in October usually. Usually the first week in October, that first Monday, is typically when we target our golf outing.
Okay.
So next year, our current Booster Club president, he is a member of Orchard Lake Country Club, and so that's where he's wanted to have the golf outing. So next year it might change, might move to a different club.
How many people is it? I know, like I was telling you, I had been at the one at Oakland Hills, and I thought it was kind of like a big competitive thing. At first we thought it was going to be a really easy
Depends
thing.
on who you are.
Well, for me it was really, exactly. It was a big deal, and we had so much fun though. But it was in August. It must have been maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think.
So that was probably before my time.
It was really hot. It was really hot weather, and naturally. And so, and it was also, I think it was before they had taken away the trees, or they were going to cut down a lot of trees. But anyway, it was I thought it was really big. It was a very big event for a small school.
It is. It is one of our biggest events, something that we always look forward to. And I think the participation has grown too, and especially the participation with female golfers. I remember my first year, we may have only had about 2 or 3, and this year we had quite a few more. So it's also exciting to see that just the sport of golf, I think, is growing.
For sure, yeah.
In general, and especially with women.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see that.
It was funny. It was funny as I think back over that, because you're right, there were a lot of guys from Oakland Hills who were blonde, and we were out there doing our best. And it's a very tough course,
Very tough.
Really tough. So I would be much more inclined to go to Orchard Lake. Not that it's easy, but so tell us some more other things that you guys do and what's coming up, because if our viewers hear, what is coming up for Sacred Heart over the next year.
So one thing that I know we're trying to work toward for the spring, we actually this is the second year that we had a pickleball tournament for our upper school girls, and we've invited the all-boys school, so U of D, Brother Rice, which has turned out to be a really great event for us.
Cool.
And I know now we're hoping to do that for our parent community. We want to create maybe something in the spring where, hey, come out, play some pickleball, maybe enjoy some wine. So that's one event we're looking to host.
And that would be at Sacred Heart?
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we will chalk off our tennis courts and lower the nets a little bit so we can all get out there and play pickleball.
That's the big thing now, right?
It is. Everyone wants to play pickleball.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool.
We have another event that we typically hold in the spring. The last few years we've held it at Dico Dow's, and it's last year it actually fell on Cinco de Mayo, so we did a tequila tasting, which brought out quite a few members of our community.
Oh, nice.
Hosted by the
Yeah,
Booster
there's
Club.
a lot of stuff.
Just building that
Yeah.
community between all of our learning communities and those families. So those are, Booster Club is always trying to put on community building events.
Right, and all these private schools do that. It's just crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they have a lot to choose from around here. But a lot of your alumni, I would say, it's probably all over the country, right? From your actual school.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know some people in New York that they're as dedicated as if they were right here.
Right.
More so
Right.
than a lot of people.
And then we find alums that have gone on and moved out of Michigan, and now they're in states where they can send their children to Sacred Heart schools. And so we have a couple that they have their children at the 91st Street School in New York, and
Really?
so it's nice
Where
to see
Lady Gaga
that.
went, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
See this massive alumni network. It's crazy.
We do.
Well, Paige, thank you so much for coming. We're going to be wrapping up here in just a few minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to tell people or invite people to the events and say, contribute, put us in your Christmas gift list?
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Or just considering Sacred Heart, especially
Right.
if you have a young woman and looking for a nice fit and
fit, yes.
a really great education.
Right. It's got all the pluses. It checks all the
looking
blocks.
at Sacred Heart.
Yeah.
Absolutely, can't go wrong.
Well, thanks, Paige, and best of luck to you and the field hockey and or soccer and field hockey, whatever.
Thank you, Connie.
Thanks. And thanks for watching today.